I'm gonna get you a
Take
new
those
camera,
Google
though.
eyes, Mark. Take those Google eyes.
Woo! Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. You can stream us at am950radio.com. But I want you to meet my morning stars. Hey, Robert. Shalom to you, my brother. And Bernadette, sending you so much love today. Please go meet my morning stars, who are the afternoon stars. They're just stars, the Santita Jackson stars. That's right. And they are on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. So please get on over there, like and subscribe. Like and subscribe and become my friend. Become my friend. I want you to do that. And let's get right to it. Please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Everybody, Bernadette, Robert, everybody, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. I need you to like the show, like the show. And I need you, Bernadette, Robert, everybody, please pass the show to at least one person. Okay, at least one person. And let's go to me on Twitter at Santita J. At Santita J. Well, we have got a lot of ground to cover. We're going to have Norman Solomon in the next hour. War Made Invisible. War Made Invisible. Really counting the human toll of America's wars. And it's now in paperback form, and he is really giving us an update on Gaza. Of course, Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. He and Jeff Cohen helped to found that. The Institute for Public Accuracy, they helped to found that. Roots Action, they helped to found that. He is, of course, the executive director of the Institute for Public Accuracy. But we're going to be talking with him in the next hour about what is happening with Gaza and with the Middle East. It looks like we could be having a wider war that would go beyond being a regional conflict. That part of the world is too resource rich for it just to be limited to being a regional conflict. What is going on, everybody? And there was a study that showed that America, attorney Mark Fancher and attorney Daryl Jones, Mark Fancher, of course, brilliant author, social critic, and Daryl Jones, chairman of the Transformative Justice Coalition, America's wars have killed more than 300 million people. That is the estimate. They have estimated that communism has cost the world 100 million people, but America and imperialism has cost the world three times as many people. So what about this? What about that? But right now, there is a story that is so disturbing. I came across it on my timeline this morning, and I said, you know what? I have got to reach out and we got to talk about this because I'm not hearing about it. I'm not hearing about it at all. There was, there is a Black student at Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania, uh, on the swim team, very excited to be there. And he said that, when I visited Gettysburg College, I felt like I was at home. It's about 69% white, 21% people of color. And he was at a party. And, he was the only Black person at the party, but he was with his teammates and he felt very comfortable with his teammates. No harm in that. Um, but something happened. Something happened, and it turns out someone used a box cutter to carve the N word, Nigger, in his chest. What's going on, everybody? It's a small liberal arts college, about 2,200 students. What's going on? And please really go beyond Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a symptom. He didn't start this fire. He could help put it out, but he didn't start this fire, you all. This is in the DNA of the country. But my goodness, in 2024, someone would carve, not write it on his chest with a marker, but they carved the N word in his chest with what appeared to be a box cutter. How are you supposed to get beyond that? How does this happen? It occurred on September 6th, right at the beginning of the school term, according to this NPR report, during an informal gathering amongst the men's swim team at an on-campus residence. So this happened on campus. And, well, a student used this box cutter to carve the N word. I have to keep on saying it because when I've said it to people, they have been so appalled and shocked and stunned they haven't known what to say. And he was the only person of color at the gathering. According to his family, quote, the reprehensible act was committed by a fellow student athlete, someone he considered his friend, someone whom he trusted. So, what do you think about this, everybody? How does this happen? Um, Even as we see more and more evidence that experiencing racism can affect your brain, there are a lot of little pieces here. But we're going to talk with you, Attorney Daryl Jones, Transformative Justice Coalition, community psychologist, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, because there is trauma here. Got to be. But let's start with you, Attorney Mark Fancher. Brilliant civil libertarian, brilliant lawyer you are. And I'm going to pivot to you, Daryl Jones, because you have been a prosecutor also. Let's start with an overview of what has been reported. Um, what happened here? Is this a hate crime? I mean, do you have to investigate to determine whether this was a hate crime, and just the social environment in which this happened? Attorney Fancher.
Well, I think it's being characterized as a hate crime, and very often, and it depends upon the statutory scheme that exists in various jurisdictions, but very often, hate crimes are not standalone crimes. Very often, they are crimes that enhance the penalties for standard crimes such as assault and battery or whatever else may have occurred. And makes what distinguishes hate crimes is the intent of the perpetrator. So someone might, punch someone in the face, and that's an assault and battery. They may have done it just because they didn't like the way that this, guy was looking at his girlfriend or something. That's not necessarily a hate crime. But if, in addition to, whatever hostility he may have demonstrated with the punch, he also uses a racial slur or something like that, then that helps to distinguish it and to establish it as a crime that's motivated by bias, and which would make it a hate crime. So I don't know what governs in this particular jurisdiction, but certainly there is no more explicit evidence of the intent of the perpetrator in this case than what he did with respect to carving the N word on someone's chest. I don't think it can be any more clear that this was racially motivated. And I think that the next question becomes, to what extent is the institution responsible for this sort of thing? Generally, institutions seek to comply with the requirements of Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, and that prohibits the maintenance of any type of discriminatory conditions in an institution that receives federal funds. And pretty much every college and university receives some measure of them, so they usually are subject to the requirements of Title VI. Um, a university can be responsible for maintaining a hostile racial environment, but the condition is that the university has to, in some way, be on notice that that is the case, and that they have had the opportunity to do something to prevent that type of an environment. So specifically, if this particular college has been an oasis of racial tranquility up until this incident, and this is a stark aberration, this is the only time that they've ever seen any type of demonstration of racial animus or hostility, then the college would not necessarily be held liable or responsible for what happened. But if, however, there have been these types of incidents, not necessarily as severe as this one, but other things which would have in some way interfered with the opportunity for students of color to take advantage of or enjoy the benefits or the opportunities presented by the institution, and that has been brought to the attention of the administration, and the administration has demonstrably demonstrated disinterest in this and has taken no action, then yes, they could be liable. for what happened. So, I think that's sort of the legal framework for it. But I think that beyond that, there certainly is a set of social concerns that are obvious with respect to what happened. Um, I think you alluded to it in your introduction. The fact that this is not the creation of Donald Trump, that white supremacy has been with us since at least the 1500s globally, and it has been refined over the decades into a science or a high art, and it has found its way permanently into the fabric of the United States and into the consciousness of everyone, not just the white community, but communities of color have internalized notions of white supremacy. And the only thing that has really changed is the degree to which it has become socially acceptable to demonstrate these feelings or these notions. And so it is certainly frowned upon. It is unacceptable in pretty much all circles to admit that you are a white supremacist, or that you have feelings of racial hostility toward others. But that has not erased from the thinking and the consciousness of so many the idea that there is something special about whiteness as a status, and something that is inferior about being a person of color. And in many cases, unfortunately, that goes beyond just feelings of supremacy and inferiority, and becomes the motivation or the trigger for acts of hatred, which is I would presume what we've seen here. And I think that, unfortunately, and we don't know a whole lot about the thinking of the victim here, but if it is as it appears, that he was an unwitting victim, that he did not suspect that this was going to happen because the perpetrator was his quote unquote friend, then that is something that suggests that he's probably not alone among many youth of color who have been lulled into a sense that because people interact with each other in ways that are amicable, that they are friendly, that they smile, that they go places, that they are not secretly, and maybe even on a subconscious level, harboring these feelings of racial hostility and racial animus. And that can be a very dangerous thing, because when it does emerge, it comes as a total shock, and it can have devastating consequences. And it's not always as serious as this. Some years ago, I was in the produce aisle of a supermarket, and there's a young black man. I would guess that he's probably about maybe 23, 24 years old, who came over to me, and he said, "Excuse me, sir." He says, "Can you tell me how to pick out a good watermelon?" And I said, "Well, I don't know if it's a science to it. I mean, I've heard that if you pick it up and it's heavier than it looks, then that means that there's a lot of juice in it, and that's probably a good one." He says, "Oh, okay, good, because I got to get a good one." And so then I stopped, and I thought, I said, "Excuse me," I said, "My brother, why do you need to do this? I mean, is this just for you and your family?" He says, "Oh, no, no, we're having an office party, and I was assigned to bring the watermelon." And I said, "No, come on, we got to talk." I said, "I'm assuming that your colleagues at work are white." He says, "Well, most of them, yeah." And I said, "And so somehow you're the one that has to bring the watermelon?" He says, "Oh, yeah, yeah. We all bring in different things, and so they suggested that I bring that." And I said, "Do you understand the significance of that and what's happening here?" I said, they are all in on the joke, and you're not. That you're going to be the one that's bringing this, and they're going to all have a good laugh at your expense. And he said, "Oh, no, no, they're all friendly, they're all nice. I mean, I don't think that's the case." And so I had to really work hard to get him to not bring it. But I think that that degree of naivete about race is probably more common than we expect. And it reinforces, I think, the need for us to remain vigilant in particularly communities of color where we have our youth who are increasingly interacting with kids from other communities, other homes. They need to know the truth about race and the pitfalls of remaining somewhat naive and blind about continuing racial realities that we faced, manifested most dramatically by the MAGA movement and everything that's associated with it.
Hey, everybody, please like and subscribe. Thumbs up, thumbs up. I need you to get those thumbs up. Like the show, like the show. Please like it. And please, Ashley and Robert, Bernadette, everybody, please share. Please get those thumbs up. I need you to like the show, like the show. This concerns me, Mark Fancher, Attorney Fancher, and Attorney Jones, and Dr. Latrice, because I see Black kids in particular dropping their guard. Uh, our collective guard and their individual guards. And that to me is a very dangerous thing. My Jewish friends do not do that at all. They remain vigilant. And one of my friends, he is in his mid 40s. He said, my grandmother told me, don't get too comfortable here because the country that you're born in might not be the country you die in. I said, wow, really? He said, hey, she survived the Holocaust. So, yeah. And we get driven out of everywhere. So they pass those lessons down. But when I want to talk about slavery, or, yesterday when we were talking about color and colorism, we become very emotional and we really don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, how can you remain vigilant? How can you train your children to fight? Because this is what they will have to do if they don't know, and if this is something you don't want to talk about. And I realize we've been traumatized and so traumatized that we don't talk about it. But it's almost as if this child, and I don't think his parents meant any harm, but he was sent to this school, Attorney Jones, without having been forewarned and forearmed. And, because I know I went to Howard in Washington. And Washington is like, you got Georgetown, George GW, Catholic University, Gallaudet. I mean, you got a lot. And then you have schools and more. And UDC, you got them in the surrounding areas. But the gathering spot when I was in college was Georgetown, the area. You went to have dinner there, you shopped over there. It was a lot of fun. But I remember when Reverend Jackson was running for president. Well, first of all, you saw hostilities when the white kids would get drunk. And I'm not painting with a broad brush, everybody, but, drunk man speaks a sober man's thought. I mean, that's just the way it is. And you were trained, wait a minute, don't get around certain people when they're drunk because you can get your feelings hurt or you might get hurt. And we knew that after a certain point, you had to leave because you might be in harm's way because folks are getting drunk and, people start saying things and it can, things can go left real fast. So, I mean, what is your take on this, Attorney Darrell Jones? Because this did happen on campus. And it's just hard for me to believe. I mean, because this young man he's very comfortable. This is his teammate. And this is someone with whom he was comfortable. And I'm like, what did he miss? But start with the legal part, because that's the social and sociological part, right?
Yeah, that's correct, Santita. That socially is the social psychological part. There's a lot that's questioned here. There's a lot that I don't understand that's going on here. Number one, we have the African American kid who's somewhere between 17 and 21. We don't actually know the age, so college age student that has the word carved into his chest with a box cut. So from there, let's just start there, right? At a minimum, we have some type of aggravated felony, aggravated assault under Pennsylvania law that has occurred. So at a minimum, the university is duty bound to contact the police and have an investigation occur with regards to this felony that has now happened. It becomes interesting because we know from the police department that the chief of police deferred it back to the university and said that the university said it wants to handle it internally. That doesn't make sense. The police department is put on notice of a felony assault that has occurred. It is duty bound to do the investigation in that case. They tried to say that the victim in this case, the young African-American guy in this case, said that he didn't want to proceed with it. Well, no, it doesn't unfold like that. You don't stop as the police at that point. You still do your investigation. Simply because a victim of a crime says that they don't want to go forward, particularly if it's a felony, does not mean you stop investigating and try to put together the information for any charges that may be appropriate. It certainly sounds like in this situation that charges should have been filed against this teammate. Now, whether or not the young kid wanted to testify against the teammate is another question, but he becomes a witness of the state and not his own independent entity. He doesn't have a privilege to not testify. There's been a felony crime that's occurred, and he is duty bound and obligated by law to testify. The university is duty bound and obligated to have the police involved. The police is duty bound and obligated to take the report, to do a thorough investigation, and to move forward as is appropriate as a result from the investigation. In this situation, none of that occurs. What makes it even stranger to me is that, and I agree with you, that if you're a young kid just out of high school, let's say, and you're experiencing this, you're not really certain. This kid tells his family. And his family agrees to not go to the police with this for the investigation and the criminal investigation. That's problematic. That tells me there must be something else that's occurring. But we do know that they do go to the local NAACP that's there in I guess it's Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
In that area. Right.
In that area for them to assist in this case. So it's confusing. I think there are a lot more facts that still need to unfold from this situation, but it sounds like there's a whole lot more that's going on. Let me tell you the other thing that I found really suspicious about this and very puzzling about this is this. They were both part of the swim team. As a result of this incident, both of them were suspended from the swim team. Mm-hmm. Why are you suspending the victim? What did the victim do to merit suspension? So there are a lot of questions that just need to be answered here in this situation. I spoke to an attorney that I worked with that went to Gettysburg College, and I had to ask him, is this indicative of Gettysburg College? Is there a vibe and a head nod of racism is okay there? And their response was absolutely not. None of that had they experienced while they were at Gettysburg. So it really becomes problematic in my mind as to what was going on here. Was he lured into this situation and then held down and then had the N-word etched into his chest? Mm-hmm. Because if you're having that etched into your chest with a box cutter, I can't imagine that you're laying still to allow this to happen. Mm-hmm. And if you're the administration and you see this, you've got to call the police. You've got to move forward with charges. All of this is problematic. And I tell you, the university should be put on notice, and I'm sure the NAACP is going to do its part to put the university on notice, because we need to know, are there other incidents like this that are going on? Are you covering up more things, telling them not to go to police, to stay with the university? What precedent are you setting for the students that are there? We know that at Gettysburg College, it's 70-some% white and 4.5% African American. Yeah, that's problematic, and it's a very troubling message that you're sending to that 4.5% about their value as students and their value as individuals and humans. So I find it all very, very troubling, Santita.
Well, it's troubling, but come on, we're adults here. It appears that he's being pressured by the school to not rat out his classmate. The school is protecting this white young man, just as the UNC Chapel Hill held Carolyn Bryant Dunham's confession in her complicity in the murder of Emmett Till, just as her confession and her arrest warrant was held at the courthouse in Mississippi. These people get a lot of cover. And we just, it's like, wait a minute. See, I'm not a lawyer, so I can just say it. Okay. Just as a layperson looking at his parents are grateful that the son's at this nice school. Oh, no. Oh, no, 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 no. Because they should make this a big issue because they have no right. The school should not handle this internally.
No.
It's very clear that something awful happened at the party. Because in order for that to happen, you have to either be drugged and if you're drugged or held down. You got so that's two people. That's three people. Someone's doing the carving, two people are holding you down. And that's just the arm. We're not talking about your feet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. I think we need to stop giving people this kind of space. Nobody else will give anybody this kind of space. Race is not the problem. Racism is. That's just call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the police need to be called out because they're protecting someone who doesn't need to be protected, someone who needs to be prosecuted.
Absolutely.
And that's why I've always said these indictments and these prosecutions, they're selective and they're political. And so just stop playing these games here. In the meantime, we have a lot of questions, and I'm wondering how we're raising our children, Attorney Fancher and Attorney Jones, because to me, we're not arming our children. We're not telling them the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not saying that you should assume that all white people are bad and all black people are good, because that's not true, and that all white people are racist and would do something like this. But, wait, there's some positions you don't even put yourself in because you don't quite understand. You need to be real careful.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow or another, these black kids get real comfortable. And then something goes very wrong,
mm-hmm.
very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And this happened, and someone who he trusted, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, community psychologist, someone he trusted, a friend, a buddy, a fellow teammate, did this. And I think that other teammates were complicit. Dr. Latrice, how give us an assessment of how you see this. I mean, his reaction, his family's reaction.
Well, I think that this is a really problematic situation because given the environment that one goes to school in, based on what the ethnic population looks like, I think a lot of things are tolerated because of the minority majority ratio. And so if he was at a party and he was the minority at the party, chances are he's been in 100 other spaces that were just like that on that school ground. And I'm thinking that maybe he didn't feel the need to speak up for himself because he didn't feel like he would have that type of support. And maybe he's gotten accustomed to the systemic aspect of racism that exists on that campus. I can't imagine someone thinking that it's okay to carve the N-word into someone's skin, number one. Number two, that's dangerous, traumatic. Whether it was racial or not, who wants an act like that performed on them? So that in and of itself is just super troubling. I can't believe that the authorities wouldn't have been called in on this. But I will also say that today we live in a society where if we don't really instruct our children to understand the dynamics of racism, they will go into certain spaces and they will say that's just the way it is, or they will accept it. And there will not be many people protesting or challenging these type of acts. But I also say that given the culture of that college campus and however that young man attended that school, maybe he thinks it's a privilege to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe not saying something is his way of just kind of fitting in, ducking down, and just not saying anything, not ruffling any feathers. But in our day, in my day, going to school, it's just certain things were intolerable for us. And I went to Whitney Young, so I went to a school where there was everything and everybody. It was just a
Dolphins in the house. That's right.
That's right. Dolphins. And so this reminds me, though, of this whole protection thing.
But wait a minute. I think we need to explain Chicago on paper has been the most segregated city in the United States.
Absolutely.
At our school, you have all these magnet schools now, Attorney Fancher and Attorney Jones. Whitney Young became the template for the highly selective magnet schools, not only in Chicago, but really across the country. And there was a racial component because, unlike any other school in the city, public school in the city, it had to reflect the city population racially in terms of the student body. So that's what so Whitney Young had some very interesting dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
and because they pulled like the top students from around the city and some of the most connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very it was a very interesting environment looking back.
Yes.
But we had some racial tensions that were quelled very quickly. But let's be clear, they did exist.
They did.
They did exist, but and I think you would see it more in the sports space,
Right.
because you had some people in different white ethnic groups who walk around with their gang jackets on and things like that. It was like, whoa, okay. I didn't think too much of it, and then you'd see different folks walking around with their stuff because but I guess my point is to Dr. Latrice, for your child not to know, to me, is a very dangerous thing.
Really, it is. It is. And I'm telling you, it reminds me of an issue we had at Homewood Flossmoor High School here. And it was a blackface incident. And these children who were implementing
And that's
this
an
blackface,
affluent suburb
yes, and
that is
they were
white.
protecting these students because they were athletes. And what I did not like about it was the tension it created in the school was just off the chain. Like, I could not believe that they thought that this was going to be a sweep under the rug type deal. And the next day, it happened over a weekend. So the next day, that Monday, some of us, it was maybe 6 of us as parents, we'd gone into the superintendent's office and we thought, okay, they're going to be meeting us ready to talk. And they were meeting amongst themselves, trying to figure out how to get us to be quiet. And we heard an announcement over the PA system. They didn't know we were in the school. And they told them, we know that this act of blackface happened this weekend, but we would just encourage you all to just kind of look to the other side and try to see how we can work this out. And I was listening to that message going, are they for real? Because those kids were around there looking like they were about to pass out, like mad. And I just couldn't believe it. And when I did get a chance to speak to the principal and the superintendent, I felt like they were trying to quiet the students more than they were trying to deal with these students who actually, performed the act. And what ended up happening is there was this huge walkout where 90% of the students walked out. And they walked out and they just refused to go back into the school until this issue was addressed. And I was really proud of those young students because they took the realms and just said, hey, we're gonna walk out. And of course, we were there for support. But my whole thing was, I have children here. And even if I didn't have children here, I pay taxes here. I'm a community member. There's no way in the world I could act like that didn't bother me. I was deeply offended.
Well, and I think we need to point out that 2 of the white teammates, reported this incident.
Right.
And so let's not think that somebody didn't see this and that somebody was not appalled.
Right.
So somebody said something.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm really concerned that this Black child, that we're making these Faustian bargains, Mark Fancher and Attorney Jones and Dr. Latrice. We're willing to give up the world. We're willing to gain the world and lose ourselves and sell our souls, quite frankly, for space in a school, for some kind of acceptance. Attorney Fancher, Mark?
Yeah, and we really don't know how it went down, but here's a typical scenario in these kinds of situations where it has a lot to do with young white male culture. They're all around. They've got this young brother who's in their midst, and so they're doing their thing. Testosterone fueled kind of jostling and talking and joking and that kind of thing. And whether they do it deliberately or whether it's just something that they do, they will test the waters. And so they will make a comment that's vaguely racial. It just and so they'll look at the reaction of the person of color to see how they respond to it. And the person of color is kind of caught off guard and thinks to him or herself, well, okay, well that probably came out of left field, but that's probably it. And I don't want to disturb the good vibe that we've got going here. We're all having a good time, so I'm not going to make a big deal of it. I'll sort of laugh it off. That's noted by those in his company. And so then the next thing you know, just a few minutes later, then they make another comment or a joke that's a little bit more explicitly racial. And it becomes a slippery slope. And it gets to the point where the person of color feels that they can't stop it because it has just taken on a life of its own. And if the student feels too isolated or intimidated to really try and reverse what has become a group dynamic, because at this point his whole group is engaged in this, and he just, for whatever reason, feels that he still needs to be a part of this group. Things just continue to grow and grow and grow. It's just the nature of and the group dynamic of racism, that when those who have those kinds of inclinations and tendencies see that it's being met without resistance, then they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. And at a certain point, especially if they've been drinking or something like that, it has gone completely out of control. And they've moved to the level of violent acts. And so, we do a lot to instruct our children on a number of things. We tell them how to interact with police, and we tell them this and we tell them that. But I don't know that we necessarily give them enough in the way of instruction on these kinds of dynamics that occur, across racial lines. And that in this kind of a situation, you have to have zero tolerance for any type of racial comment. That the first racial comment that's made, you have to affirmatively and in a very firm way say, I do not think that ethnic and racial humor is funny. Let's cut it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And you have to shut it down right away, or else it will continue. And I think it has implications. It's important not just for kids, but it has the whole understanding of how race works in this country is important even as they move into adulthood. Because if they have been hanging out with white kids growing up, and they have perceived that their circumstances are similar, if not identical, then they will begin to believe that the privileges that come with being white as an adult extend to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for example, I've been in situations where I've worked with legal teams of lawyers, and we've had strategy discussions. And so one member of the team might say, well, what we could do is we could do X, Y, and Z. And I would have to quickly say, that's borderline unethical. And I can't do that. As you might be able to get away with it because you're white, but they're going to come after me. I'm not going to get the benefit of the doubt here. And so I'm out. I will not participate in this. And the reaction is very often, they're kind of stunned. Well, it's not really unethical. I don't care. It's close to that line. And when the question is raised before anybody that has any authority, I'm not going to get the benefit of the doubt. I am out. We will not do this. And, for those who don't understand how this works, they can find themselves in a lot of trouble in a lot of different situations very quickly.
And I think that that's part of the reason that I this story really, Attorney Jones, it hit me, Daryl, right where I live, because we've all, after a point, you've lived in these spaces where you might be the only Black person or among the few, And we've all heard how articulate we are, smart, little, they make you a little different and all of that and all of that and all of that. And if you fall for that, you are foolish, really. But this is how it works. And then out of all of that, you can also develop some genuine friendships like you do with any other human being. It is what it is. But I think I wonder how this young man got into this situation, and I am not trying uh, to cast the world of judgment upon him.
Mhm.
That is to be destructive. I want to be constructive.
Mhm.
And, to say, son, don't do this. You've got to be careful, Attorney Jones.
And no, I'm in agreement. I think that one of the things that Mark said when he said it made me think about my grandfather. And that was when Mark said that when someone does something against you, that you need to correct it. Now, my grandfather would say immediately, because you don't want them to come back and say you misunderstood, or any of that stuff. So when this happens to this kid, the first time, because you gotta remember, we're talking about swimming next, so we're not talking about someone who's in a white world, a white sport, excuse me, a black sport or anything
Right.
like that. He's operating in what is a predominantly white space in the swim world. And one of the things that I find, a couple of things I find really interesting. Number one, as you mentioned, the people that called it out, they were the upperclassmen on the swim team. The upperclassmen on the swim team. What that tends to tick off in my mind is I start wondering, is this some type of initiation into the swim team
Absolutely.
that's going on that has gotten out of hand? And this is when the upperclassmen now are stepping in to try to put a stop to this. The other part of what has grown from this is that the Black Student Union at Gettysburg College has now issued a statement saying that the university is not being as transparent as it could, and they don't feel safe based on this incident. And that goes directly to what we're talking about. It's the university's responsibility to provide a safe space for all of these students. And what they're doing right now is they're protecting this young white kid that's there. They're not disclosing all the information. They're holding the police at arm's length. They need to fully disclose what's happening, and the police need to do an investigation so that this matter can be put to rest, and that the Black students that are there can feel comfortable that when their rights are affronted, that they will be taken seriously and taken to be investigated as it should properly be done. All of that is what's at play now, and I'm still at a loss for this kid's parents, for the parents not pushing them for this police investigation. I don't get that part. That bothers me a whole lot. I can understand the kid being afraid. I can understand the kid going through the initiation. I don't understand the parents not saying, son, the father, the mom, stand with me right now because we're going forward with this. This is wrong. It can't happen. And so now I think we're going to see at the university, it's going to see a lot of racial division, if it hasn't existed before, starting to exist now.
But you know what? I think let's back up, because I think you see where this young man got it from. Because I tell you what, if it happened to me, my parents would have beaten my butt first for not fighting.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. I had to stand there and watch my mother read this Dr. Alan Counter from Harvard University. I heard her curse him out. She said, "How dare you call me after you've insulted my child?
Mhm.
How dare you call me?" She
Mhm.
said, "You think I'm going to send my daughter up there to fight your battle?" She said, "Are you tenured?" She said, "I didn't think so. Why are you at Harvard? Why aren't you at Howard?"
Mhm.
If you got a problem, said, "You don't think that I think more of your school than I think of our Black schools. You got to be joking me." And he didn't mean any harm, because he was a really great stand-up man. He really
Mhm.
was. But my parents would get us dressed up to go to Black restaurants, not just downtown.
Mhm.
At some point, where is your self-respect? At some point, you say to your child, you don't have to take this.
That's right.
There's some other schools here, son. No. They don't deserve you. You need to stop begging to be a part of them.
That's right.
Otherwise, they're going to continue to treat you this way. Dr. Latrice. You got to have an insult level, Mark.
In this,
Where is it?
but in this world of social justice, you would be surprised how many parents discourage their kids from speaking up.
That's not a world of social justice. It's called Thomism. Okay?
Yeah.
No. Wait. And that's why we're looking at negative wealth by 2085 and 500 more years to get economic equity. Now I'm tired of it. So then you come to me when you elect black people who don't deliver for you, but who put a brown face or a black face on imperialism, and it's okay.
Mhm.
Imperialism is what got you over here in the slave trade. Colonialism, that's all it is. Now, if it's okay with you, then you continue to take that hit. It's not okay with me. I don't do slavery well. I don't do plantations well.
Right.
See, I'm not trying to move into the big house. I want to end it. And what hurts me about this child is that he is not equipped to deal in this world. Carol, you missed this part. This is what happened. Just the quick and the quick and the dirty of it. And we're going to be talking with Norman Solomon from the Institute, Executive Director of the Institute for Public Accuracy, about his book about his book on War Made Invisible. We play a lot of games with war. We'll be talking with him in the next hour about not only what's happening in Gaza, but what's happening all around the world. Okay, that having been said, Gettysburg College in Pennsylvania, a young black boy, a young black man, as you said, because they have not given us details, Attorney Darrell Jones. You're absolutely right. Somewhere between, say, 16 and 22 or so. I'm sure I'd put him on the younger end of being an underclassman. And he was at an on-campus party. He is on the swim team, and one of his teammates carved the N-word in his chest with a box cutter. That's what happened. So that's the story. That's the story. And as you pointed out, Attorney Darrell Jones, this is a felony that should have, although it took place on campus, it was moved to the police. The police then moved it back to the campus and said, you all handle it. That's inappropriate. But it lets you know the games that the legal system plays. They do everything they can to protect white malfeasance. I mean, call it what it is. What do you have to lose? I mean, when are we going to stop this? I mean, Mark, really? What's going to happen to him on his job?
That's right.
What's going to happen? I don't, help me.
Yeah, I mean, he's well, let's be hopeful that this was a lesson that was brought home in a profound way for him. Let's hope that he takes from that experience something that will serve him well in the future, and hopefully will serve his children well. But I think that the rest of us, for the rest of us, I think it's a wake-up call. And, the rest of us may be complicit in the sense that we've become lax in our vigilance, that we have not made it a point to make sure that our children in the village understand what they need to understand about race. And I think it's far too easy for us to drift into that, particularly when we have, a Kamala Harris who's competing for the presidency of the United States. We've had Barack Obama. These kinds of things, these symbolic things, send messages that are perceived as signs of progress, when in fact they can be very deceptive and can really obscure what the actual truth is about this country. And even for people who are very progressive, we talk so often about entering into alliances and coalitions, across racial lines. We are it's the sad truth that we as African people in particular are never assured that when we enter into coalitions with white workers, that somehow, even if we achieve a victory together, that we're going to enjoy the victory together. That white supremacy, white chauvinism will once again rear its head, and we'll find ourselves as being subservient to new masters, who we together who together we have worked with to displace old masters. So it's something we all need to think about, and we need to remember. And to some extent, white supremacy is so pathological that I don't know that we can necessarily expect it to just go away by itself. it requires some intervention, professional intervention on a mass level that may not be coming.
Well, we're the ones who have to make it happen. Attorney Gerald Jones, 1 minute for you.
I understand and appreciate what Mark said about this being a learning opportunity for the victim. I don't think it is. I don't think that it has been that learning opportunity. I think that in order for this to be that learning opportunity, the victim has to be forced to go forward and prosecute in this case, because it's not only the victim that needs to learn a lesson, it's the perpetrator that needs to learn a lesson, it's the police that need to learn a lesson, it's the university that needs to learn a lesson. What lesson is being taught if he stays silent and lets it occur and just let it go away? What's the NAACP doing? Are they telling the family to prosecute? Because that's what they should be doing. I think the lesson is taught when you put the full force of the law on the side of this Black victim and what's happened at Gettysburg College. That's when everyone starts learning the lesson, the value of the Black life for that victim, the value of doing what's wrong by the perpetrator, the value of doing what's right that the university should have done, and what the police department should have done. That's what I think needs to happen in this situation, Santita.
Hey, and please don't give them a settlement with money where they have to sign an agreement so they can't say anything about it. Give me a break. Aren't you tired of that? I mean, really?
Super tired.
You're not winning. 1 minute for you, Dr. Latrice.
I just want to look at it from the impact standpoint. The trauma of going through a hate crime and first of all, not even recognizing that you're the victim, that's an issue. But the other side is the consequences that happen for these targeted groups of individuals like us. When you look at it, number one, the person's life is put at risk because you're talking about carving something. I mean, come on, that's dangerous in and of itself. But then when you look at it from the standpoint of the traumatic side of it, it probably took him a moment to recognize that this was something that was happening that should not have been taking place. But how about going home and telling your parents and they tell you, okay, well, we'll just handle it within our own, constraints. Well, that right there is a mental health issue because now you're looking at something being compressed where you want the individual to act as if it did not bother them. And then they have to go on and continue through their education, their academic career, hopefully to get a job. And they don't know how to present this situation or deal with it when they're presented with it in their corporate life. So there are so many aspects to this that are multi-level. There's no way in the world, but I'm calling it what it is. It's systemic. It's systemic racism, and it's rooted in these type of academic settings. And until we band together, unify, and talk about it, call it out for what it is, not be afraid, don't sugarcoat the words or anything, it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
Well, look, let me tell you something. For the ancestors, you owe it to them to stand up to them. You owe it. And you owe it to yourself. And you owe it to these white kids you go to school with because you're not 3/5 human and they're not 7/5 human. You're not subhuman. They're not superhuman. We're all human. And on the day that we really start acting like it, my father often said that no one can stand on a bent back. Get up. Get up. Coming up, Norman Solomon, War Made Invisible. War is invisible to us. We spend all this money on all these wars and people are dying every day.
Wow.
Think about that. And there is a study that shows that 100 million people have been killed because of communism. There's also another story, and another study that shows that 300 million people have been killed by American imperialism. Think about that, everybody. Oh, no. It's got to stop. Think about the Atlantic slave trade. Transatlantic, think about that. Think about that. Think about South and Central America. Think about the indigenous people. Think about all that. Think about it. Think about it. Think about it. And this is for us to make America right. Because I'm an American 10 toes down and I love this country. It is mine. We built it. And I'm going to criticize it. And I'm going to tweak it and push it so that it can become all that it's supposed to be. I too sing America. No, I sing it. And I sing it first because everything I do makes America what it's supposed to be. Second hour of the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio in just a few minutes.